right, this is maybe the most unique setting for an interview. DJ Garcia traversing the desert of California in between work assignments. Jake Garcia, welcome. You're now a two-time veteran of Stories Inside the Man Cave, man. That has got to be high up on your resume list of accomplishments.
I think there's no doubt about it. Honestly, I hope we can do this every year. Because two to me is not nearly enough, Sean. Thanks for having me on. Excited to do this. Excited to talk some Peach Bowl with you.
I love it, man. Always enjoyed his work when he was in Austin, Texas. We both worked for KVU, but barely missed each other. But the unique thing about this, why it ties into the Peach Bowl, this is special. So he covered the Longhorns while he was at the Channel of Champions, KVU, and received a great opportunity in Seattle to cover the Washington Huskies. Then he got to cover the Huskies versus the Longhorns in UT's first ever CFP. He's now in Phoenix, pretty much just got started covering the Sun Devils in their first ever CFP, who will now face the Longhorns in the Peach Bowl. And they have to go way out east to Atlanta, GA to make this happen. We were talking about this when we were setting this interview up. I mean, and how do you even react to that? All these coincidences, I don't know what word to describe it, but it's really cool for you, to be honest.
No doubt. I think there are two takeaways. One is that whatever college football team that I cover, I guess tends to go to the CFP.
There you
So
go.
any college town looking to crack the top teams in the country should reach out to me. Number two is that I can't seem to escape the Texas Longhorns. Not that I was trying to in the first place, but yeah, it's been 2 straight years of okay, I'm going to a new city, and then all of a sudden UT is following me wherever I go. But it's been amazing because, as I mentioned to you off camera, Sean, I feel connected to both fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
I still have a lot of friends in Austin. It just makes for a really fun time.
Yeah.
I think last year when I was at the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, like that is the most fun I've had covering a sporting event in sports media, just because it felt like a family reunion for me. It was cool to see a bunch of old faces, both in sports media in Austin, and then with the Longhorns team themselves. So I'm happy that we're doing this again, and I think for your sake, it would probably be best if it weren't a repeat of last year, when Quinn Ewers had that last second heave that was batted down, and
Right.
UW went to the Natty after that. I think Texas is in a better position this year. I'll start by saying that.
No, I agree. I think last year was a great team. I feel like maybe this is one of the better defenses in UT football history. And, you think about Arizona State. When I was younger, I'd say when I was really young in the 80s, I remember them going to Rose Bowls. They had some really good teams along with Arizona. But you arrive, they change, the college football world is imploding every month, changes galore. We never really thought Big 12, maybe Big 12, but for them to go to the Big 12 and in the first year win it, and now they're in the CFP. What, from your understanding, what how did ASU do this in such a short time frame?
It's honestly been one of the more shocking developments and storylines of college football this year, because this was a team that was picked to finish last in the Big 12. Preseason Big 12 media poll, nobody thought that they would amount to anything. And it wasn't even like this was supposed to be an awful team. And out of nowhere, a young head coach who's in his lower 30s, one of the youngest. When he was hired, he was the youngest coach in Power 5 college football, now Power 4 college football. But the beauty of Kenny Dillingham is he has the energy to match and set the tone and create a culture for the rest of his team. And I think that's the biggest reason why ASU is here, is because their head coach had this undeniable belief in his guys. And I think it's been contagious, and they've continued to win, and it's been a snowball effect. I think you have to look at the offense, which is led by, for my money, maybe the best freshman quarterback in college football in Sam Leavitt, and then a running back who has played a lot of college football, but until last year had never played it at the highest level, referring to Cam Skattebo. But this was an FCS player who was under recruited out of high school, and all of a sudden, was a couple votes shy of being.
So you mentioned Cam Skattebo, and I'm very proud of myself that I pronounced his name correctly, because I know that's the type of name that you can be butchered frequently. Ashton
Right.
Junty from Boise State and Skattebo are two guys that really, really, really caught my eye early. I can relate to Skattebo because I love vertically challenged guys who always have something to prove. He mentioned in an interview, he was asked about always being counted out, doubted along with the team. And this was his response to that.
If you think you're successful, then you'll start falling. And I think the doubt that people give to us for free is extremely, motivating to everybody. And like I said, if you have doubt, you'll be successful in life, because you're going to constantly want to prove somebody wrong.
Jake, you can't disagree with that. Someone doubts you all the time. That you always have fuel to be great.
Yeah, and I think Skattebo's been playing with that chip, since he was coming out of high school. If you go back and watch his highlight tape from when he was a high school football player in Northern California, like, he was running with something to prove then, and I think that has only grown as he's developed and really understood what his leadership role is for this ASU team. Like, this is a team that has adopted his entire ethos and way of being. The way Skattebo runs the football is the way that ASU plays football in a broader context. They're physical, they're unrelenting, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. Now, with that being said, like, physical by Big 12 standards might be a little bit different than physical by, and I'm not even going to say SEC standards, because I think that's a little overblown. But I will say by Texas standards, because in their first year on the SEC, Texas was, the trend-setting team when it came to, playing a punishing style of football. And so I think it'll be interesting. I don't have any doubts that, Skattebo will be, burdened by the moment, or, unable to rise to that level of competition. I think the big question is, can the O-line create holes for him? Can the O-line protect Sam Leavitt? And if they can, I think this is a closer game than people might expect.
Even Steve Sarkisian and that entire UT coaching staff, he admitted that they have been a fan of that guy all season. They love the way he plays. But he says when they were watching tape, preparing for Arizona State, yeah, they were a little concerned because he's not your one-dimensional type of back.
I think when you first turn on Cam's tape, you're thinking you're just going to see Mike Allstat. You're just going to see this bruiser that's just running into the line of scrimmage and bouncing off of people. And then the more you watch him, you're like, man, this guy's got really good feet. And then all of a sudden you're like, but wait a minute, this guy catches the ball really well out of the backfield. He's got, really good initial quickness after the catch to get vertical. And so he's a really versatile player. I was hoping he was going to be kind of a one-dimensional guy.
I think every opponent was hoping for the same thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Sark hit on a really good point there. Like, not only is this guy a physical punishing runner, but he's fast, he's quick in short and tight spaces. And I think what's been most impressive, especially these last few weeks, is his balance. Like, he will get knocked sideways and somehow stay on his feet and pick up 10, 20, 30 more yards in that first contact. I truly don't know like the physics behind some of these runs, but it's been really impressive to watch, and it makes for a really fun player to cover.
I can't wait. I can't wait to see him, against this Texas defense. And I admire the way he plays. You briefly touched on it. Kenny Dillingham, how young he is. And even Sark had mentioned that, Sark's connected, it seems like, to every coach in America. But he even complimented Dillingham. What is it about from your side, on the media side, that you enjoy working with him? Dillingham, that is.
Man, it's so many different things. I think the first thing that is undeniable is just his energy and passion on the sideline. Like, his players feed off it, they rally behind it. They understand that like their coach is an extension of them. And I think Dillingham is always super quick to point out that it's like he always says that, it's not me setting the tone, it's me adopting the personality of the team. I am an extension of the team. I see it as the other way around, because when you have the guy at the top is just as excited and energetic and pumped up to be at a practice or to be on the sidelines, like that can go a really long way, especially in the modern age of college football, where there are external motivators as well. I think Dillingham has done a really good job messaging what's truly important, what's going to get you to the NFL, what's going to create an impact and a legacy at a university. I think he stayed true to a lot of those things. And the second thing as well is that, like, this guy is an offensive genius. Like, he reminds me a lot of the Seahawks coach Mike Macdonald. When
Wow.
Mike Macdonald was hired, there was this whole story arc about how did you go from a very average to below average high school football player who suffered a season-ending injury his senior year of high school to all of a sudden the youngest coach in the NFL. That's a carbon copy blueprint of Dillingham's path. Season-ending injury his senior year in high school. Decided he wanted to coach. Dedicated himself to memorizing playbooks and learning schemes. He was a sponge. He learned, as much as he possibly could from coaching high school football. Continued to coach high school football while he was a student in college, which is like, dude, when I was a student in college at ASU, it's like, I don't want to be, on a high school football sideline. I want to be on Mill Avenue or something. But on Friday nights, like, Dillingham was coaching high school football, and it one thing led to another. All of a sudden, he's following Gus Malzahn. He's working under Dan Lanning. He's the offensive coordinator at Auburn and Oregon. He coaches Bo Nix, and he said from the beginning that his dream job was to coach at ASU, his alma mater. He's from the greater Phoenix area. This was the top of the mountain for him. And I think that's why he's had success, is because he loves ASU more than anybody possibly could. Like, this isn't a Kalen DeBoer situation who comes into a program, has no ties to a program, makes it really good, and is looking for his next best thing. Like I'd be naive to think that, Dillingham doesn't want to coach at the highest level and, isn't motivated by, huge salaries. But if I'm ASU, I'm throwing the kitchen sink at this guy, because he loves ASU and is committed to making ASU great long term. And I think, like, if there is a financial package that could convince him to stay, like, he's going to stay. And I've never been more sure of saying that, despite the fact that there's so much evidence in the greater college football world that would point to the contrary. But this is an Arizona guy, born and bred. He loves Phoenix. He loves the Valley. And I think that is very evident by watching him on the sideline.
Oh, you feel the energy. Then you have the cast of characters, Skattebo, and then Sam Levitt, some of the guys on the defense, which are we don't hear a lot of. it all starts with Dillingham. And then I hope you guys caught what Jake said. He kind of it just drove right past it. He said, I'm an ASU alum, product of the Walter Cronkite Journalism School. So, yeah, this is cool for you getting to cover your alma mater. I briefly touched base. You did as well. The battle of quarterbacks.
Yeah.
There's a soundbite right here from Sam Levitt. I don't think he's lacking any confidence.
I'm just excited for the opportunity. People keep counting me out since day one, and I'm gonna go prove I'm the better quarterback. And that's how I feel since day one. So I'm gonna go put everybody on the map.
Wow, Jake. I mean, he's quarter. I hate. I did it when I was in the media. I still do it. The quarterbacks don't ever face off against one another, but fans and everybody say, who's going to have the better performance? I mean, do you think Levitt has it in him to outduel Quinn Ewers? Quinn's more of a game manager, in my opinion.
Right. Well, I was going to say, it's like, man, I've never seen UT fans rally behind Quinn Ewers the way they did after hearing that soundbite from Sam Levitt, because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but based on what I've been seeing in the Twitter world, Quinn Ewers, he's not universally beloved in Austin. And I know that the backup quarterback is every fan's best friend, but when your backup quarterback has the last name Manning, it ratchets it up a little bit more. So right. I thought that was funny that all of a sudden, Quinn Ewers' approval rating was 100%, because I hadn't seen that honestly since he was being recruited by Texas. Does Levitt have it in him to outduel Ewers? I mean, I think so. Based on what I've seen from Levitt this year, that soundbite is not him trying to create bulletin board material. Mm-hmm. It's not, him trying to, reach the other fan base and rile them up. That's who Sam Levitt's been all season long. It's who he was before the Kansas State game when ASU went on the road and was playing a top 15 team. I'm blanking on Kansas State's quarterback. I think his last name is Johnson, but Levitt made it a point leading up to the game to say this is a guy who was heavily recruited in high school, much more recruited than I was. I want to go out there and show that, I deserve to be in that conversation and that I've turned into the better quarterback now. He did that when they were playing BYU. This has been a thing all season long. So, while fans on social media want to point out that if you're coming for the throne, you better not miss, that sort of thing. No, I think this is motivation for Levitt himself. He feels some type of way. There's a fire that's sparked within him with this trash talk. And this is the beauty of sports, is it's okay to trash talk. This is not a life or death situation. We're going to be okay. So no, I think it's a motivational tactic for him. Do I know for a fact that he's going to outduel Ewers? No, because I do think that, the experience that Ewers has, especially on this stage, is going to be helpful. The lessons learned from, last year's game in the college football playoff quarterfinal, that is all going to be helpful. But on the flip side, there's also the blissfulness of being young and not, being consumed by the stage. And I think Levitt's going to be just fine.
I agree. I think this is a good matchup. I may not agree with the CFP model of instantly awarding or rewarding the top 4 ranked conference champions. I mean, Arizona State belongs. There's for sure right. They do. But I just don't believe in giving them even Boise first round buys. But that's for a conversation next year, probably. So strangely enough, and I'm going to talk to Stevie about this, there are some Longhorns who are in Arizona State, or former Longhorns, that is. I think there was, who was the coach? I think it was Beck out at Coastal Carolina. He said, we're not recruiting to build a program. We're recruiting to build a roster every year. So my point being is the transfer portal it taketh and it giveth.
Right.
It gives, so to speak. So here are a list of the former Longhorns that are on the Sun Devils roster. Jake Smith, Prince Dorba, Troy O'Meary, Jamon Tapp, Xavier Alford, and we've already heard from Zach Swanson last week or the week before, which to a lot of people watching or listening, those tough conversations are had at the end of every year. Hey, where you stand
Right.
with the program. And then Brian Carrington, who came with Tom Herman, has earned himself an opportunity to be a position coach for ASU. To summarize these guys, they're following you, Jake. That's another part. Wherever Jake goes, we're going to play.
I think Jake Smith especially, like, it feels like that guy's been in college for 10 years because I was in Austin when, they were recruiting him, and when he came over to the Longhorns, and then, I watched him play for a couple of injury-plagued seasons, and I thought this guy was pretty good. I don't know, maybe it'll be a coming out party for him because he has not been a focal point of this ASU offense. But, playing Texas, I think, is motivational for all of these guys on this list, even the guys from Texas who grew up in Texas, who maybe were overlooked by UT out of high school. That's got to mean something to you, right? I don't
It
think
does.
I don't think the Zach Swanson case is unique. And I wasn't there for those conversations that were had between him and the Texas coaching staff. He perceived them to be disrespectful. I would obviously assume that the Texas staff just viewed it as being open and honest. And I think there's something to be said for, instead of gaslighting a player, you want to let him know, like, hey, you're not going to get playing time here. It's probably best if you go look elsewhere. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I also don't think there's anything wrong with using that as fuel and using that to jack you up before the game. I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
Whether or not you want to go talking to reporters about that is up to you. But I always enjoy these type of storylines before a game like this.
I do too. And in the end, it has truly worked out for Zach. He's back home. He's
Yep.
part of a team or group and that has changed the trajectory of that program, and they're winning a lot. Real quick, and I know this is a general question, but who wins and advances to the CFP Final Four out of this game?
When I graduated from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at ASU, that was an oath I took to never enter into the prediction business.
Right.
I think it's a losing battle. It's a way for me to not make any friends on either side. Um, but because you so graciously welcomed me on and gave me 30 minutes to just spew, I'll give you a prediction, Sean. Haven't given it to anyone else. But I think Texas wins this. I don't know if it's going to be close. I think ASU might surprise people with how they won't look overmatched. I
Yeah.
don't I'm not going to say that UT is going to run them out of the building. But I think Texas is the better team. I think what they went through last year, losing to Washington in in New Orleans. I think that molds the program, and I think Sark learned from it too. I think that pays off this year. I think Texas beats ASU. And honestly, if any ASU fans have problems with that, I'll just resort to the fact that, I'm just a journalist. I call it like I see it. Don't have any attachment except for the fact that I lived in both of these wonderful cities. Uh, I'm excited for this game.
I am as well. And one thing that to get a taste of what Jake does, he's a great storyteller, puts together some unique stories. He has one, and he found out, and it was well done, down to the T, the use of the teams, players get bowl gifts, and they even did back in 1970 the Peach Bowl watch. and use the
Yeah.
sound of the ticking to tell the story of the undefeated 1970 Peach Bowl championship team from Arizona State. Briefly talk about that story and where the fine folks watching and or listening can check out the full story.
Well, if anyone's living in Phoenix, tune into the local NBC. That's where we want to drive people to, is still the TV product. So that's Channel 12 in Phoenix. If you're not living in Phoenix, any of my social media accounts will have ways to watch the story. On Twitter, I think you have it up there, Sean. Jake_M_Garcia. It's on Instagram as well, Jake M. Garcia TV. Head over to our website, 12news.com. Like, it exists in a lot of places. I had a lot of fun putting that story together because there were so many parallels from the 1970 team to the 2024 team. From,
Wow.
down to the team, down to the fact that, they weren't getting respect at a national level from the outside world, that they were the only ones who believed they could do something special. They had a head coach who was, setting the tone for his entire team. He was hard nosed, but, he was fun to be around in Frank Kush. And I like the things that I learned telling this story. For example, like when they got to Georgia, the coaches knew there was going to be rain in the forecast. So a few days before, they literally flooded Georgia Tech's practice field so that the team could be prepared to play in the elements. Like those were
Wow.
the kind of
Oh my God.
tactics that the coaching staff was resorting to. And then at halftime, ASU was losing to North Carolina. The coaching staff made them scrimmage both in the locker room and in the end zone. Like that tells you that this was a different
Wow.
time than what we're seeing right now. So, but at the end of the day, I think like you could tell that these players who are now in their 70s, and there was a assistant coach that I talked to as well, who's 101 years old.
Oh my
The
God.
the feeling was universal and unanimous. It wasn't like a bitter alumnus sort of situation. Like they were proud. They were proud that, what they had done 50 years prior had laid a foundation and set the stage and really like put ASU on a national map. And it's been a long and winding road to get back, but they are back. And I think that energy that they showed for this team is felt by a lot of longtime ASU supporters. And will it make a difference in the game? I don't know. But it's just a really cool, like, full circle story.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was. I enjoyed the piece that I did, the part of it that I did get to watch. It's typical Jake Garcia storytelling. Well done. And those are the type of stories I love to find. They're hard to find, but sometimes, you get lucky. But it's also about just using your network. But it is ideal. I did not know that about all the different parallels to this Arizona State team. But either way, regardless, it's going to be a fun matchup. And I just find it amusing, the geographic location of the game and where the two schools are. And then, of course, Jake's story of having the opportunity to cover both teams and still has good connections. And you left on good terms in all the places you've been. Jake, you're welcome back anytime. Maybe if something dramatic comes out of this, we got to hook up again.
No doubt. I appreciate it, Sean. Maybe next year. I think I'm going to be in Phoenix for a while.
I hope so.
So I think to get me on next year, we're going to need another CFP matchup between these two teams. It's always a pleasure. Always enjoy talking ball with you.
I love it, and then hopefully we can get Stevie on. But I think we're 2 days away from the last day of the year. I think Stevie Lee has made a strong case to be the dad of the year, or at least the volleyball dad of the year in America.
I love it. He's got my vote. He's got my vote, no doubt.
Jake, safe on the roads, and man, really proud of you. And man, Happy New Year, my friend.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Thanks, bud.